Alright, so just to start here, this time I'm just going to have it on my screen, and I don't know why I'm putting it. I had a freak out like a month or so ago. I don't know how long ago it was when I had uploaded. Like it basically is a maze of content. I don't know. Maybe hopefully I'll be able to get to, but for now I really got to focus on the Book of Nahx, Chapter 1 or Volume 1. So right now it's currently uploading. It's 7:31 on the 19th of July 2025. The original 10 chapters in their original form. No edits, no anything. So, at least that'll, I don't know, hopefully exist without, I think, what did they say? Let me go back to, so like I have to record these to my videos, so this is what I'll have to do in order to get it copyright free and give you a little bit more context to it. So as those are uploading, we'll just kind of allow that to do its thing. And I do now already have uploaded the Book of Nahx Chapter 1 Power of Words, or POW, with the commentary like this one. So these are with commentary videos going forward. And if you find them helpful and in the midst of watching what you're watching, then I'll do my best to narrate and get ourselves through this. So it looks like Chapter 3 is going, and now I'm going to essentially have the first 2 chapters. It's taken me forever just to get through the second chapter, or the volume 2 in and of itself, because just starting the volume 3 has taken it to a whole different level, because the lyrical movement is what Chapter 3 is, while Chapter 2 is fight or flight, and the first one's power of words. Just those 3 chapters alone is just like a fully embodiment of really what the full rest of the program is. Hey, Chloe, stop. Sorry, my puppy is named Chloe, and currently the channel's been named Chloe because I wanted to do this by telling a story while showing you how much I really like nature and all that, but yeah, wasn't really going anywhere. And right now, the world doesn't really want me to wait for getting the story out that way. But you can all watch my my time in the park with my dogs flying the drone, if you'd like, as well, because some of the beginning things in the way I operate in the real world is definitely present there, more than it has been in the recent couple weeks. But I mean, I've seen their teas, or I've seen the courts, and kind of putting this umbrella beyond me. So I'm going to flip over here. We're going to need to go into another folder I have on my desktop currently, Book of Nahx 1 in written form. I do have the teaser, right? So Book of Nahx, this is my early release teaser. It's currently actually available for anybody who has any interest in that. If you go to the 7 Chakra Tiers, that's a Facebook group. Okay, so the 7 Chakra Tiers, just jumping around. And that's probably not the best layout for this. Let me just go over to YouTube feature live large. Yeah, that'll be better. But I have it in PDF form. Chapter 1 takes us all the way to page 99. It's kind of ridiculously long. Okay, and it's because each chapter is essentially its own book. Okay, it concludes with a poem by Khalil Gibran, "Do Not Love Half Lovers." It's kind of ends up being, it is a love story. The whole premise of Nahx being never again hate anything, right? So if it's never again hate anything, and we all think the opposing force of that is love, and it is, in a way. But really what hate is the culmination of fears, the inability, the suppression. It's this rage that can be churned into action if the person that's operating doesn't have the integrity that's necessary in order to kind of press forward. So for that reason, I've had to be as vulnerable as imaginable in order to get this stuff published. His poem that concludes the book is there. There's a lot of personal thoughts, which are really just out of like an intention book that I had been writing about a week ago, or not a week ago, a year ago, between February and maybe early April of 2024. That would have been still living in Utah, and I was just going through this phase of like getting into the mode of writing. For this video, though, I just want you to know that those 99 pages do exist, and it has a lot of my personal story rendered inside of it, including like my rage, right? The parts of me that were really angry. The event is covered. There's Kiwi walks, which is like the original time that I went out, and just like I'm doing now with Chloe and taking her out. Those were what Kiwi walks were when my first YouTube channel, existed. The brand, Nahx Service and Solution, Nahx Studios, and now working on Nahx Network. But doing whatever I need to via the net in order to free myself, if you will. And then you've got my best friend in the world, Kiwi, right here. In the real world, like the physical comfort that for me that exists is her, Kiwi. So Nahx Farms, the Millwood house, living in Spokane Valley. It was actually an in-between section called Millwood. There's a lot of people cited. There's the hero with 1,000 faces, the hero section that breaks that down. The words and the Spokane apartment and a lot of things just to kind of set the stage. So at least by end of chapter 1, you don't just necessarily see the brand, but you're also seeing the human and what might have provoked this individual to creating this in the first place. Not into what it became, but as a result of his own, unwinding. It's not good. It's not even laughable, but it's just the reality. It's just the truth. So that's all I can really offer ever. There's utterances of the artist, and the person that I was trying to write, and where that all started, which was a landmark forum. There's the difference, the Mr. Hyde, knocking, the salesman, the runner, Dish One, loyalty, now communications, and landmark. These are my personal points of reference through chapter 1 that I went through backwards, so that you can kind of get back to the initial stage here of my landmark forum. So to conclude that, and that brings us all the way back to page 56, 57. So really half of this book, or half of this full first chapter, is a very personal portion of what I needed to share. And so there's considerations. I'm going to go back to a section, Karmic Tendencies 1.10, Carolyn Meese, her references. I'm going backwards from the end to the beginning for chapter 1 at least. The pain of consciousness rising. This is in relationship to those 7 chakra tiers, from the higher pineal gland activation, third eye, crown chakra to our root. Those are the 7 primary chakras. But essentially they all boil down into a centrifuge, a center place within our body, which is the heart space. And the heart space kind of has this correlation, energy is as above, so below, and the symbolism of what the heart represents. What keeps us alive is our heart. It's the love. It's like having a pulse and having a purpose and having something that's worth doing. And so like you might ask yourself, well, why would somebody spend so much time writing so much out when everything's just being handed to us on a platter? Well, it's because I don't trust what's being handed to me on a silver platter. It's never really, it's worth some investigation. It's worth diving into universal languages, discovering what games I've been playing, what it means to retort is in here. We're moving backwards again. So we're coming back to the beginning. And where I'm going to land, this is what I want to bring to your attention. But there's the concepts of language and communication. There's the medicine, right? So which is glorified as medicine is an important topic. Rhetoric, prisoners of war. Pow, it can also be translated not just power of words, pow, but prisoner of war. And then nature, nurture versus nature. The who, So this is the complicated like beginning of it all, like, but who I am beyond what I am, right? We always ask ourselves, who, how, what, why am I? All the paradoxical questions that like really don't have concrete answers. Like it's just such a mess of explanations. So like it starts on a really, the chapter itself kind of gets into some really weird, hopefully you can just stomach it and get through it, and hopefully indulge far enough in that you might be curious. It all boils back down to a date at the impetus and the journal. Okay. So there was a song that I wrote to my mother in response to an event that happened at a specific time in my life where I lost my brother. And on the same day I lost my knee. And that's really where this story begins, like who he was to me relationally, the timing of it, the elements around that, the relationship between my mother and me, and yeah, there's just the paradox and the willingness to even put this on paper has been the hardest thing to go through. So by the time we get to chapter 2, I had to really flip the script. So it starts right here. And this is where I think that we all need to start if we're going to be willing to create something like this. And this was a prayer of unknowing by Thomas Merton that was introduced to me by some very important people, helping me like understand and realize like prayer is not just words. They're the intentions from the core of us, like, and even if I might not know where I'm going to end up, I'm just like asking permission, not from whatever exists in this world, but from like the actual true God, if there is one, to like allow this to come into existence. And so it reads, and I'll pray with us. My Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I am actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you, and I hope that I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire, and I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore I will trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. Amen. And this is something that's like, it's an undercurrent in the book, but it's definitely evident to me now. It's very obvious in the Twitter space and the atmosphere of the internet and everything that this is not something that's unknown anymore. And to what degree, I still honestly don't know. All I'm aware of is that the repercussions of my original choices have had repercussions, and to get this out to you and to explain for your own benefit, hopefully, is worth sharing. And so this poem by Khalil Gibran in the end of that chapter ends with, to live a life, not half a life, right? To be cut short. That's kind of probably the most important reason, is the last lingering syllable in the chapter is to live a life, not a half-life. And these are, almost just, they're lost. Like the whole concept of actually living a full life. To me, anyway. I know other people have, actualized, better, more sincere relationships. So I'm just disconnected from that, unfortunately. And this has been the love and the work that I've been putting in. The love of truth and the pursuit of my own happiness and accord of creating something more beautiful and important in the world as a result. And it goes, a poem by Khalil Gibran, do not love half-lovers, do not love half-lovers, do not entertain half-friends, do not indulge in works of the half-talented, do not live half a life, and do not die a half-death. If you choose silence, then be silent, and when you speak, do so until you are finished. Do not silence yourself to say something, and do not speak to be silent. If you accept, then express it bluntly, do not mask it. If you refuse, then be clear about it. For an ambiguous refusal is but a weak acceptance. Do not accept half a solution. Do not believe half truths. Do not dream half a dream. Do not fantasize about half hopes. Half a drink will not quench your thirst. Half a meal will not satiate your hunger. Half the way will get you nowhere. Half an idea will bear you no results. Your other half is not the one you love. It is you in another time, yet in the same space. It is you when you are not. Half a life is a life you didn't live. A word you have not said, a smile you postponed, a love you have not had, a friendship you did not know, to reach and not arrive, work and not work, attend only to be absent. What makes you a stranger to them, closest to you? And they, strangers to you. The half is a mere moment of inability, but you are able, for you are not a half a being, not half a being. You are a whole that exists, to live a life, not half a life. And so that brings us to the end of page 98, and chapter 9, or 99 introduces part 1 of chapter 2, chapter 2, which is part 1 of the whole book, and it's called Fight or Flight. And, this is, kind of a line from one of my favorite authors, Chuck Palahniuk, and a statement made by his character, which is essentially like an alter ego of, the main character by Tyler Durden. And he says, "We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no great war, no great depression. Our great war is a spiritual war. Our great depression is our lives. We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be made millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, but we won't. And we're slowly learning that fact, and we're very, very pissed off." And so, it's definitely a precedent of like dukes up for sure, but it initiates by going into much more of the fight or flight response relative to lights and sounds. And it concludes about truth also being a paradoxical thing that can trigger being seen for the first time. And that's one for me it's become really evident in writing this book and getting to this stage of the project. But I'm talking about avoidance in here, meaning, and an especially curious occurrence right here where I talk about a hospitalization moment when I was 37 years old, so not that long ago. To be honest, but again, that was also in a moment, mind you, where I touched that chapter 1 again. So let's see what happens. If I get hospitalized again or things go absolutely crazy, know that I'm uploading this for posterity to, recognize, okay, if I touch this thing again and all this energy starts rising up against me and all those same forces are coming out to attack, then, yeah, I hear it, I see it, and I do my best to interpret it all. I mean, come on, this isn't really that clear language, come on. But all the same, there's avoid dance, right? Avoid dance. This is what, you just kind of get left high and dry. And I remember what had happened as a result of my hospitalization. Well, you're welcome to get into this if you really go find it. There's opportunities for you to outline and write what comes to mind for you. There's distinctions on the victim, the warrior, and the master. These are 3 levels of language and the way in which we actually communicate amongst each other. It talks about battlegrounds, and there's a lot of things in here. There's references to Caroline Meese's book and what she's been able to share with me in her thing. There's some questions as it relates to a Don Miguel Ruiz from the 4 Agreements. So we make all sorts of assumptions because we don't have the courage to ask questions. And a lot of this in the fight or flight is just trying to get to the right questions in a way. And there's a lot of free writing through here, but this is really where I want to really dig in for this latter part of this video. Okay, the second video, getting into fight or flight, is that there's a historical awareness, a aha moment, and my relationship to knocking doors for a living relates to that, because that's when I really got curious about programming and the publications and the fact I was selling it, but I didn't actually subscribe to it myself. And why? Because I was on the road. I was peddling, soliciting, whatever word you want to use, like a very antiquated business model, but it was a 1099 employee model that allowed me for the first time in my life to kind of come into my own and be a lot more independent and self-reliant and responsible, but I really wasn't responsible, so it's probably not the right word to talk about. We're going to get into this section because this is a very important aspect of what we're really digging into for the sakes of the book and what you're watching or listening to. So the onset of television came during the early to mid 20th century. This time frame just so happens to coincide with our most serious and devastating global historical happenings. These events are known as World War I, which is from 1914 to 1918, and World War II, 1939 to 1945. So it's just like, well, we have much to consider if we want to make such a claim. So what I'm really going to do here is break down it's a Google search of chronology of 20th century science revealing something. So I went from 1900s to 1950s and kind of looked into what types of scientific models and whatever it was that was existing at those times that were like top of the charts, like what we have today in top news and media. So in 1905, Albert Einstein publishes his wave-particle duality in light, as well as his initial propositions, that was known as special theory of relativity. In 1914 came the first steps in elucidating chemical transmission of nerve impulses, neurotransmitters, by Henry Dale and Otto Loewi, which was almost immediately followed by Einstein again in his dissertation that amended and more concretely concluded his original position regarding relativity and in what has since been regarded as the general theory of relativity. At the quarter-century mark, in 1925, so literally a century ago, to 1926, we're talking about Heisenberg. Werner Heisenberg and Erwin Schrödinger together published the Matrix and Wave Formulations of Quantum Mechanics. And by 1952, the year that my father was born, the theory of nerve cell excitation, also known as the action potential, was announced by Alan Hodgkins and Andrew Huxley. This theory stated that a nerve cell, our nervous system, the activation of like subatomic particles within our bodies, and they could be excited, and it is excited when a sufficient electrical stimulus causes a rapid change in membrane potential, allowing the positively charged sodium ions to flow into the cell, generating a wave of depolarization that travels along the axon, transmitting the electrical signal to other neurons. So it's kind of like this internal mapping structure of our, not DNA, but like the actual physical makeup between those, allegedly invisible energy centers in our body, which are actually essentially other brains of our body. Our root, the connection to Earth allows us to see who we are. It's rooted in the Earth energies. If we're looking at our sacral chakra, that's our creative force. It's our, sensitivity, creativity. It's our first initiation socially, and in the long run through post-puberty, we really utilize it in order for extenuating and perpetuating the life cycle of our race, in order to achieve and exceed, carry on our lineage, right? And that's a pretty base knowledge and desire. We can all kind of tap into that one pretty intensely. But this process occurs through the opening and closing of voltage-gated ion channels, resulting in a all or nothing response where the signal either fires fully or not at all. So there was an all or nothing, and this is a different way of looking at what I'm talking about, but from 1952. Okay, so 1952 is when the theory of nerve cell excitation or action potential was introduced. And I posted, it's past 1950, but the reason it's important, the reason it's in my book, is because that's also the year of my father's birth, August 21st of that year. And, I just posed the question at the end of that page, does this not make you think fight or flight as well? Going beyond that into 1963, just like 11 years later from then, Physiology of Medicine, Nobel Prize, awarded to Hodgkins and Huxley, became founding of modern neuroscience, right? Brain study, brain pattern recognitions, and so forth. And it's also become known as the Hodgkin-Huxley model, and has since influenced many other Nobel Prize winning works, as if that's like, because this is the most esteemed, highest level studies in the world. To win a Nobel Prize, you really have to actualize something of this magnitude to map out the brain. Oh, well, yeah, in 1963, 1952 to 1963, post-World War II, yeah, kind of a big deal. So really what we're talking about then from there is Oppenheimer, the Masterpiece Project, where he concludes by saying, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." And Chloe, she's too playful. I gotta let her out for a minute. She probably just needs to go potty. And I've been on here mucking about for a good long while already. Hopefully I should close the gate. She won't run very far, but nonetheless. So that quote is not actually his original quote. It's actually taken out of the Hindu text of the Bhagavad Gita, and it's like a really deeply like spiritually based, cultural recognition. Like, it's not an easy thing to make a decision similar to like how this feels for me right now, in like the most bizarre way, just by attempting to upload and push this out to the world. But it is what it is. So it concludes in this chapter, or this section of the chapter anyway, on 117. As black and white depictions of global significance began to take precedent over the local community's radio waves, an obvious yet subtle buzz of static electricity took root in our minds as we observed a screen that glistened warmly and brightly in our living rooms. The newest technology captivated the attention of a defenseless population. It has since emerged as the powerhouse of the modern era, and as we have become disproportionately subjugated to the effects of this movement, we have become unconsciously devoted to its relative relevance in our individual lives, subliminally, subconsciously, and aggressively, without warning. At least for my generation, it was without warning. And I still don't understand how everybody has come to like recognize my brand, where otherwise from my side of the coin I don't see anything. But anyway, I have these files all up and over, and the original documents in the works. So I worked on it, let's see, earlier today by 2:35 p.m. and it had some, I had to leave work and had to do some things, so there was that, so that I could get back and kind of start, I don't know, figuring out what the next right move is related to doing this the right way, responding appropriately. But nonetheless, there's the New World Order after that. Also, talking about the consciousness expanded, like what that meant to the nation and the world when these things come in. It talks about the creator right here. We're going to say it, the creator, and the warrior, and some more words started coming out. The language of victim, warrior, master right here. The way, many are knocking constantly on the door in some faculty. You got to be willing to knock, and that's the reason why I feel like I got some of these answers, because the name itself kind of permits me to, whether I like it or not, get the answers. So that's really where I think it's coming from more than anything else. Not that I've ever done anything wrong, but just like maybe been utilized as the tool. So, but frequency and vibration is a big part of this. To understand, I went on and on in that section for sure, but it's definitely a really thing. I still don't think I have enough in that section, if I'm really being honest. But for now, like, it is as it is. And then there's the additional considerations, the mental health as an institution, meaning that it is abbreviated as SAD, the SAD, social anxiety disorders. So, my mental breaks are provoked by this, like, if I can't maintain my levity, if I can't just speak plainly, like, oh, I'm sad, so you got to get hospitalized, you got to take our drugs, you got to go this way because, well, there's something wrong with your brain. Well, why is there something wrong with my brain is the question. Where have my eyes been? I couldn't dream of answering that question. Where have my eyes been? Like where everybody else's eyes have been. I don't know, let me call somebody and see if they can tell me where my eyes have been. Okay, it's 8:01. It's 8:01 p.m. Central Standard Time. July 19th, 2025. That's where my eyes are. That's where my attention is right now. Like, if you can steal my attention, you can convince me of anything. But really, if I know myself, if I can maintain that, then all is well. And that's I'm just eagerly attempting to do here with these videos. 2.11, more personal points of reference, which go into the beginning, the fear, the divorce, again, the long list of personal parts of me, the church, the extended family, the property, and the ever extended family, on the move, musicians, the studio, the next marriage, not my marriage, I've never been married, but, and the 3 stepsisters, the stepfather, the rage, again, that was already in chapter 1, so it's definitely a theme, but the fight, right there, the excuse, the root cause, Utah, the cost, and the conclusion. So, that leads us through to speaking on veritas. Veritas is a Latin word that means truth. It can also refer to the goddess of truth. In Roman mythology, the word is often used to represent honesty, rectitude, and the true or real nature of something. And then there's a talk about this. This is from an individual at World War II during the post-campaign, or during the latter stages of that campaign. He had moved to America. I'm not sure exactly where he was exactly, but he had to change his name. Sounds familiar a little bit. And he was called Andre Moroy, or Morat. I'm not sure how to say that, but you might be able to figure out why. And the Love's Philosophy is the poem. The fountains mingle with the river, and the rivers with the ocean. The winds of heaven mix forever with a sweet emotion. Nothing in the world is single, all things by a law divine. In another's being mingle, why not I with thine? See the mountains kiss high heaven, and the waves clasp one another. No sister flower could be forgiven if it disdained its brother. And the moonbeams kiss the sea. What are all these kissings worth, if thou kiss not me? And then we go to chapter 3. This is where we are now, and kind of like in the building blocks of this, where there's a Bob Marley quote and my own personal song that leads us into some more content that's on another document. But this sample is available to you on the 7 Chakra Tiers. If you go on there, go to Files, you can download it for yourself to any device. And I encourage you to do so if you're curious about anything that I'm even speaking on. Granted, I'm silenced as far as the universe is concerned at the moment, so it's less likely that I would be granted the opportunity to share this. Or at least from my side, I can't see anybody seeing these things. I'll only know when I get the feedback, which I sure as hell hope is warm and friendly. But yeah, that's what we got for the day. It's 8:05. Cutting this down to size, and that's what we got. So thanks for listening. Peace be with you, and I look forward to seeing you in another video, hopefully still in high spirits. Peace.